All right, in this video, I am going to walk you through how to begin to summarize all of the data that you've collected through the focus groups that you've held at your campus. As a reminder, you most likely will have at least 2 focus groups that you've conducted, and the goal of this process is to summarize the data across those focus groups. So you're going to have transcripts and notes from each of those. In this process, we're going to work through is how to combine those to really be able to identify the themes that are standing out amongst all of the focus groups. So this document here is an example of the focus group transcript, notes, and summary template. This is what it should approximately look like after you have conducted your focus group and you've copied over your notes from Granola AI. So again, you'll have copied over those notes that were automatically taken by Granola AI. They're typically organized in a way similar to this, where it's kind of big overarching bucket that was discussed, and then some high-level notes underneath. After those notes, you'll also have your full transcript. So this is important because we want to hold on to the full transcript of everything that was recorded. So this will be a little bit longer, but it's important that you have both the transcript as well as the notes. And then before I go about summarizing this information, it's important that you go through and you read through the notes in the transcript and take out any identifying information. So that would include any teacher names, any student names, anything that's really pointing to a specific scenario or specific individual. So you'll just want to go through, and I typically would just remove that name and replace it with an X. So then I know that someone was discussed, but we don't have the exact name. The next step is to create the summary of this. Again, we're going to utilize an AI tool for this. For this, we're going to use the built-in Google tool. So the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I will select my full transcript. So I just clicked right at the top, and then I will go down to the bottom so that the whole transcript is highlighted. Once all of this is highlighted, I'm going to go up to the top right where it says Ask Gemini. This is Google's built-in AI tool. So then I will click that, and this little column will pop up. What I want to do is ask Gemini to summarize the transcript into a brief paragraph. So I'm going to write, please summarize this transcript into a brief paragraph. And then I push submit. Now it's going to work. And then it's going to come up with a really high-level overview of what is discussed in here. So now I'm going to go up to the very top under summary, and I'm going to highlight the summary that was created. I will copy it, and then I'm going to paste it under summary. I'll fix the formatting by making sure it's not underlined to make it a little bit easier to read. And now I have this high-level summary. After I do this, you'll also want to read through the summary and make sure that everything is mentioned in there. If there's anything that really feels like it's missing, add it to the summary. We want to make sure that everything from the transcript, all the notes that you took, are really presented in this summary. Once you have this completed, then we're going to move to the next step, which is really summarizing and combining the data into one document. Now I'm going to open up a copy of the Campus Focus Group Summary Template. So I have that here, and this is where you're actually going to be combining all of that summarized data from each of your focus groups into one document that's going to represent all the data from your campus. So I recommend having both of these pulled up so you can be comparing them, because you're going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting. So what I'm going to do is set up my screen. So on one side, I have my first focus group that was conducted. And then on the other side, I have the summary template where I am copying everything over. So just a little adjusting, but this just makes it a little bit easier to be working. Really, the main point that you're going to be looking at when you are copying over the information to the summary template is the summary information. I find it first easy to kind of go and separate the summary out by sentences. So then I'm able to really kind of identify the theme and question that's being pulled from. So I'm just going and like quickly perusing to see where those are. I've also read through this multiple times to make sure that it really is resonating with my experience in the focus group. So I'm pretty clear on what is presented here. So now I'm going to navigate to my summary template, and I'm going to kind of work through the first question first, and then I'll work through reading my summary and copying it over. But this first question is more around kind of the logistics. So it's state your subject area, grade, teaching assignment, and then also describe your ideal school day in one sentence. So I'm going to be copying over the summary of responses into this first summary of responses row. Because I have multiple focus groups, it's important to record which one you are copying the notes over from. So if I had two focus groups, I'd have focus group 1 and focus group 2. So I know this is my first focus group, and I can see this is where I have this information up top of the number of participants, grades taught, and that they taught general education and special education. So I also know that I have that in my notes overview right down here. So I'm going to highlight, copy, and then paste. The next part of the question asks them to describe your ideal school day in one sentence. I know that this was discussed in our focus group, and it's right here. The focus group of K-5 teachers highlighted that their ideal workday features uninterrupted instructional time, protected planning, and the ability to complete core duties within contract hours. So I'm going to copy that full sentence and then paste it again by focus group 1. So now I have the data for their subject area, grade, teaching assignment, as well as their ideal school day. Now, instead of working by question, I'm going to work and read through each of these summarized sentences and determine where they fit within this summary template. So this next question is talking about the biggest challenges that the teachers are experiencing. The biggest challenges are time fragmentation and a high volume of non-instructional tasks, especially emails, documentation, and supervision duties, which are the primary cause of work spilling into evenings and weekends. So I'm first going to go and copy, and then I'm going to go and read through the questions to see where this fits. So the first question, what are the task duties that are non-instructional but essential to teaching and your student success? It kind of fits, but not really. What are the task duties that are non-instructional and not essential? Again, kind of fits, but not really. I'm going to see what other questions are on here. Challenges and pain points. So the sentence is really speaking to the biggest challenges that they're experiencing. What are the biggest time-related challenges you face in your role? So this is where I'm going to actually end up copying over the sentence. Again, I'm going to write focus group 1 because that's where this data is coming from. And then I'm going to paste it over. So now I'm going to go to the next one. Teachers identified planning and data analysis, progress monitoring, and IEP documentation and family communication as essential non-instructional tasks, but noted that tasks like duplicate data entry and meetings without clear outcomes are low-value time drains that contribute to stress and burnout. So I know that this was actually what we were talking about up here. around what are the task duties that are non-instructional but essential to teaching and your student success. So I'm going to write focus group 1. I'm going to go back to my notes document, copy, and then paste this over into this row. All right, the next one I have is ultimately they concluded that protected time structures and additional support staff, particularly for special education, are crucial for both instructional quality and teacher retention. So again, I'm going to go through and see where best this would fit. The next question after the challenges and pain points was, how do administrative tasks and additional duties or volunteer responsibilities impact your time? That kind of resonates, but I'm going to see what else is listed. What kind of support and or resources help you manage your time? And this kind of speaks to it because they're talking about protected time and additional support staff is what is really crucial for instructional quality. So I'm going to think that it might be going here. I just want to make sure that there isn't anything else. How do the tasks that you do outside of instructional time as a teacher impact your work-life balance? Not necessarily. Closing reflection, if you could change one thing about how your time is structured, what would it be? And that is the last question. So I'm really feeling like it fits best within this professional learning and support question. So I'm going to put focus group 1. Again, copy and paste this over. So now I have all of my data from this summary document for my first focus group copied over. Again, this is just an example, so it doesn't cover the full breadth of what you'll actually be covering in your focus group. You'll have much more information for each of these questions, but just wanted to walk you through an example of how you'll begin to do this analysis process. And as a reminder, you'll do this for each of your focus groups that you held. So if you had 2 focus groups, you'll do this 1 more time for focus group 2. If you had 5 focus groups, you'll do it 4 more times so that in each of your rows, you have a line for each of your focus groups held. So you'll have focus group 1, 2, and so forth. Now that you have all of the data in one document, you're going to begin analyzing the data by question on this template, looking for patterns and themes. If you're using a printed transcript, you can use highlighters and a pen to highlight and write down different themes. If it's digital, you can color code the text and use comments to identify themes for each question, but read through the summaries produced, noting what's being discussed. After reading through the summary, start grouping similar ideas together. For example, if multiple people mention lesson planning or communication, put those comments together. Also look at common ideas. Look for topics that keep coming up. So after I have my full summary completed and I go through and start highlighting some themes that are standing out, this is kind of what my resulting summary sheet looks like. So I have my questions from focus group 1 and 2. And I went through and highlighted themes that were standing out. So there was communication with parents, managing paperwork, fostering a positive classroom culture. And this is related to the question of what are the tasks, duties that are non-instructional, but essential to teaching and your student success. Also creating a well-organized and engaging learning environment, emotional and mental health support, and monitoring student progress through assignments. So I'm really pulling from this summary what directly answers this question. After I have highlighted the patterns and themes from each of the focus groups, then I'm going to go and write them here. So again, you can see that I wrote each of these different segments of text that I highlighted. So one of the themes was communication with parents, also mentioning that this was mentioned in 2 focus groups because I see it in both focus group 1 and focus group 2. Managing paperwork, administrative duties, This was also mentioned in 2 focus groups. So again, if you conducted more than 2, being able to highlight how many focus groups it was referenced in really gives you an idea about how relevant that pattern is. After I've gone and jotted down all of the patterns and themes, the last step is really writing a summary for each question. So this is where I would take all of my themes and patterns that stood out to me and write a summary. So the resulting summary that I wrote was that teachers highlighted several key non-instructional tasks essential for student success, including communication with parents, managing paperwork, and fostering a positive classroom culture. They emphasized the importance of providing emotional support, monitoring student progress, and collaborating with colleagues. Additionally, creating an engaging and well-organized learning environment, along with effective behavior management, were identified as critical for maintaining a productive classroom atmosphere. So now you can see that I have initially started working from summaries from each of the separate focus groups, but now I'm ending with a full summary from this question that represents the data collected from all of my focus groups. So again, this is only an example and only showing the data from one question. You'll be going through your entire summary, so you'll have a summary response to each of the questions. But just for an example's sake, just walking through kind of what this process looks like. Once this last step is completed and your full summary document is completed, you're going to upload this to your district folder. This is due April 1st. The Maya team is then going to synthesize the data collected at each of your campuses at your district and share back one final district document with the teacher researchers. So remember, you're just one piece in this puzzle. You also have your colleagues who are your other teacher researchers. They're going through each of these, the similar process of summarizing the data from all the focus groups they held at their campuses. And then Maya will collect all of that and synthesize it. So we're going to summarize all of the campus data into one district-wide synthesis document. Hopefully this video helped to walk you through how to approach the process of summarizing the data collected at your campus. As always, if you have any questions or need any additional support, reach out to the Maya team. We're happy to jump on a call and provide additional support when needed. Thank you.